Your heart is slamming against your ribs. The cabin is shaking. A warning light just started blinking and it will not stop. You are Neil Armstrong. It is July 20th, 1969. You are standing inside the Eagle, the lunar module, 4 miles above the surface of the moon, and you have less than 30 seconds of fuel left to find a place to land. Below you, through a small triangular window, the ground is rushing up faster than anyone planned for. You were supposed to touch down in a smooth, flat patch of dust called the Sea of Tranquility. Instead, your computer has steered you straight toward a crater the size of a football field, scattered with boulders as big as cars. A few minutes earlier, an alarm code flashed on your display, 1202, then 1201. You did not know exactly what it meant in that instant, neither did most of the room back in Houston. It turned out your guidance computer was overloaded, juggling more data than it was built to handle, but a young engineer on the ground recognized the code fast enough to tell you it was safe to keep going, so you kept going. You have been trained for years for this exact kind of moment, thousands of hours in simulators, and none of it involved borders like these. You take the controls semi-manual, you pitch the module forward, craning your neck to see past the instrument panel, hunting for flat ground. Your co-pilot, Buzz Aldrin, is calling out numbers beside you. Altitude, descent rate, fuel. Fuel is the real enemy now. Every second you spend searching is a second you're burning through what you need to slow down and set the ship gently on the surface. In Houston, a 26-year-old flight controller named Steve Bales is watching a fuel gauge tick toward a number that means abort. You do not hear panic in his voice because there is no time for it. You hear numbers 60 seconds of fuel, Aldrin says. You're still descending, still moving forward, hunting for a patch of grey dust without rocks. Your hand is on the throttle, your breathing has gone quiet and short. Think for a second about what abort would actually mean here. It would mean firing the ascent engine early, blasting the top half of the ship away from the bottom half, and rocketing back up to meet the command module in lunar orbit, empty-handed years of work. Billions of dollars, a nation watching all of it, undone in an instant. If you make the wrong call, you do not think about any of that, there is no room for it. There's only the ground closing in and your hand steering toward a stretch that finally looks clear. 30 seconds comes the call from Houston. That is the fuel warning. Some engineers have said later that this is the number etched into memory more than any other from that day because 30 seconds meant the countdown to a hard decision had already started. You are close now, close enough to see the shadow of the lander's own legs stretching out across the dust below you. Dust that is kicking up in strange silent sheets because there is no air here to carry it, so it does not billow like smoke, it just sprays outward in straight lines and vanishes. Your descent engine throttles down. The contact light on the panel blinks on a small blue signal that one of the probes hanging beneath your landing pads has touched the surface. You shut the engine off exactly as trained, even before you're sure you have actually landed, because igniting on top of your own legs mid-touch could tip you over. And then stillness, not silence, because you can still hear the hum of the cabin systems, your own breathing, Aldrin beside you, but the shaking has stopped. The ground is not rushing up anymore, it is simply there, grey and pitted and real, right outside the window, closer than it has ever been for any human being in history. You keyed the radio without fully planning the words. Houston, Tranquility Base here. You said, the Eagle has landed on the ground. A room full of engineers who had just spent the longest 30 seconds of their careers erupted, some of them in tears because the fuel had run out with margins so thin that later estimates put it at somewhere between 20 and 45 seconds of burn time left in the tank. What you lived through in that final stretch was not really about heroism in the way people often imagine it. It was about a guidance computer smart enough to flag a problem and hand control back to a human. A 26-year-old engineer trusting his own read of a warning code under pressure, and a pilot willing to fly by eye when the automated plan no longer matched the ground in front of him. That is the quieter truth behind the footage everyone has seen 1,000 times. The landing almost did not happen the way the plan said it would. It happened because human judgment stepped in when the numbers ran out. Decades later, engineers still studied those final descent seconds, not as a myth, but as a case study in decision making under extreme time pressure, the kind used in emergency rooms and cockpits and mission control rooms today. You were not just landing on the moon in that moment, you were making 100 small human judgment calls in the space of half a minute, with the whole world listening on the other end of a radio signal, and when the dust finally settled outside your window, you were standing somewhere no one had ever stood before because you decided with seconds of fuel left exactly where to put your feet down.